The lesson of the day. Dawn painted the sky in shades of gold and pink. A gentle breeze carried the fresh scent of bamboo kissed by morning dew. In the heart of the valley, an elderly monk swept fallen leaves in front of the temple. Each movement was slow, mindful, almost sacred. Beside him, a young disciple watched in silence, unable to understand why the master devoted so much time to such a simple task. "Master," he finally asked, "why do you sweep every morning if the leaves will fall again tomorrow?" The elder smiled without pausing his work. "Because every day, the leaves that fall are different, and every day I am different too." The disciple frowned, still puzzled. The master, with a calm voice, added, "Today's work does not just clear the ground, it clears my mind. The lesson of the day is not in the result, but in the act itself." The young man fell silent. The sound of the broom brushing the stones became a mantra that soothed his heart. That day, as the sun rose, he understood that peace is not something you reach. It is something you practice. The young disciple kept watching in silence, trying to decipher what his master truly meant. The sound of dry leaves brushing the ground was hypnotic, as if each sweep of the monk's broom cleared not only the dust of the temple, but also the dust within his own mind. "Master," he finally said, "if the lesson is in the act itself, how do I know if I'm learning anything?" The elder stopped sweeping, gazed toward the horizon, and replied softly, "When you stop asking whether you're learning, you will begin to learn." The young man blinked, confused. The master continued, "The mind always seeks results. It wants to know if it is moving forward or backward. But life is not measured by achievements, it is measured by presence. Every breath, every movement, every thought, if done with awareness, becomes part of the path." The disciple lowered his gaze, watching a small yellow leaf fall at his feet. The wind nudged it gently, making it dance until it came to rest beside the others. Then the master said, "Look at that leaf. It does not resist falling. It does not cling to the tree. It simply follows the course of the wind. This is how we must learn. Without forcing, without fleeing, without stopping the natural flow of life." The young man smiled for the first time that morning. He picked up another broom, and without a word, began sweeping beside the master. The sound of the two brooms weaving together formed a simple yet perfect melody. And in that moment, he understood a little more of what silence was trying to teach him. As the sun rose, the temple's shadows grew shorter, and the air filled with calm. The master, without looking away from the ground, murmured almost as a sigh, "Each day brings a different lesson, but only the awake can hear it." The young disciple nodded, and the echo of those words lingered in his chest like an inner bell. When the work was done, the master leaned his broom against the wall and walked slowly toward the temple garden. The disciple followed in silence, noticing how each step of the elder seemed to float above the earth, leaving no trace. The sound of birds and the murmur of the stream blended with the breeze gently stirring the cherry blossoms. "Master," the young man asked as they walked, "how can I hold on to the calm I feel now when the day becomes difficult?" The elder stopped by a pond. The water was so still it reflected the sky like a mirror. He picked up a small stone from the ground and tossed it into the center of the pond. Ripples spread outward, moving the lotus flowers floating on the surface. "Look," said the master. The water was calm, but a single stone disturbed it. The mind is the same. Every thought, every worry, every emotion is a stone we throw into ourselves. The disciple watched the master's reflection distort in the ripples. "And how can I avoid throwing those stones?" he asked. The elder smiled. "You cannot stop stones from existing, but you can choose not to throw them. And if one falls by accident, Do not try to stop the ripples with your hands. Just wait. Stillness will return on its own. The young man lowered his gaze to the water. He saw his own reflection tremble and then return to calm. For the first time, he understood that serenity is not something found outside, but within, in the space where nothing clings and everything flows. The master sat beneath the cherry tree, closed his eyes, and breathed deeply. Every day offers us a lesson, he said softly, but only a silent heart can recognize it. Today's lesson was calm. Tomorrow it may be patience. Both bloom in the same garden, the garden of presence. The young disciple bowed in respect. Then he sat beside the master, closed his eyes, and let the whisper of the wind guide him inward. The day went on, but time seemed to stand still. Only 2 breaths remained, united with the rhythm of the universe. Silence wrapped the garden like a sacred cloak. The cherry tree's branches swayed gently, letting petals fall onto the pond, where they mingled with the reflection of the sky. The disciple remained with his eyes closed, listening to his breath, feeling each inhale as a river flowing toward calm, and each exhale as a release of weight. After a long while, the master spoke without opening his eyes. "What do you hear, young one?" The young man hesitated for a moment before answering. "I hear the song of the birds, the murmur of the water, and also my own heart. Before, all of this was here, but I did not hear it. Now, I feel the silence speaking to me." The elder nodded slightly. "That is the lesson many seek but few find. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of attention. When you listen with your soul, even the wind becomes a teacher." The disciple slowly opened his eyes. The leaves moved in a soft dance, as if the whole world were breathing in harmony. He recalled all the times he had rushed through the temple seeking answers in books, in words, in explanations, and he understood that the true answers are not found outside, but in inner stillness. "Master," he said, his voice almost trembling, "why is it so hard for us to learn to listen?" The elder smiled, picking up a fallen flower. "Because we are too busy wanting to speak, think, judge, be right. But the universe does not need our words. It only waits for us to learn to listen." The disciple watched as the master placed the flower upon the water, letting it float freely. "So should our mind be," the elder added. "Light, open, unattached to anything. Each thought, like this flower, should be able to drift away with the wind without leaving a scar." The young man felt something open within him, an invisible door leading to peace. There was no more rush, no fear, no searching. Only the understanding that each moment carries its own lesson. And in that moment, with a calm heart and serene eyes, the disciple whispered, "Today I have learned to listen." The master, with a gentle smile, replied, "Then you have already received the lesson of the day." They remained there, speaking no more. The sun sank slowly, painting the garden in soft, golden hues, while life flowed on, as silent as it was perfect. The next day, the young disciple woke before dawn. The temple still slept, and the sky was just beginning to blush with pale blue. He walked toward the garden where the master often meditated and found the place empty, save for the soft sound of the wind through the trees. He remembered the words from the day before, "Each day brings a different lesson." So he sat by the pond, closed his eyes, and waited in silence. The song of the first birds marked the beginning of the day. The young man breathed deeply, feeling the fresh air flow in and out of his body, as if the entire universe were breathing with him. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Thought dissolved, leaving only the pure sensation of the present moment. When he opened his eyes, he saw the master a few steps away, watching him with a gentle smile. I see the dawn wanted to teach you something today as well, the elder said. The disciple bowed his head respectfully. Yes, master, but I don't know exactly what it taught me. I only felt peace. The master approached, walking slowly over the petal-covered ground. Peace is not a lesson to be understood, he said. It is a presence to be recognized. When the heart stops struggling, peace appears, like the dawn that does not strive to rise. The young man nodded in silence. The master sat beside him and continued. Many seek wisdom as if it were a goal to reach, but wisdom is not attained. It is revealed, and it reveals itself in calm, in attention, in complete surrender to the present moment. The disciple gazed at the reflection of the rising sun on the water. For a moment he thought he saw two suns, one in the sky and one within the pond. The master noticed his gaze and said, "The outer world will always reflect your inner world. If there is calm within you, the universe will appear serene. If there is storm, everything will seem turbulent." The young man breathed deeply. "So, should I seek a lesson every day?" he asked. The master shook his head gently. "Do not seek it. Simply live with the eyes of your heart open. The lesson of the day is not pursued. It is received, like sunlight that arrives without you having to lift your hand." The disciple stored those words deep within his mind. Silence returned, but this time it was not empty. It was full of understanding, gratitude, and life. The sun had fully risen, bathing the temple in golden light. And in that moment, the young man knew that true learning begins when one stops searching for it. The day passed slowly in the temple. The monks went about their tasks with the serenity of those who understand that every action, no matter how simple, can be a form of prayer. The young disciple accompanied the master to the garden, where they began watering the plants together. The sun shone high above, and the water fell on the dry earth, forming small streams that disappeared among the roots. The young man watched closely as the master moved the watering can with gentle care, without wasting a single drop. "Master," he asked, "why do you water so slowly? If we did it faster, we could finish sooner." The elder looked at him and smiled. "The purpose is not to finish, young one. It is to be present. If your mind is fixed on the end, your hands will be empty in the present." The young man lowered his gaze, sensing the weight of those words. He tried to imitate the master's movements, letting the water flow gently, listening to the sound of it falling, feeling the freshness rising from the earth. Each plant, the master continued, has its own rhythm, its own thirst. If you pour too much water, you drown it. If you give too little, you dry it out. The same is true of the mind. If you fill it with thoughts, it becomes overwhelmed. If you neglect it, it withers. You must learn to give it just what it needs: attention and calm. The disciple watched a white butterfly land on a freshly watered flower. The master looked at it with tenderness and said, "See, nature does not rush, and yet everything is fulfilled. The lesson of the day today is patience." The young man smiled humbly. As the sun sank behind the mountains, they continued watering until the air turned cool and long shadows covered the garden. On the way back to the temple, the disciple broke the silence. "Master, what if one day there is no lesson? What if the day passes and I learn nothing?" The elder walked a few steps before answering. "Every day brings a lesson, even the one that seems empty. Sometimes the lesson is not a word or an event, but simply the act of living it with attention." The young man reflected. He understood that even silence, even waiting, could teach as much as the master's words. And so, as the sound of the evening bells echoed through the valley, the disciple felt something begin to grow within him. Quietly, like seeds beneath the moist earth. Night fell over the temple, wrapped in a cloak of stars. Silence deepened, becoming almost tangible, as if the earth itself were breathing in calm. The young disciple sat before his oil lamp, watching the flame dance gently with every breath of air. As he watched, he remembered the master's words, "Every day brings a lesson." He thought of all he had learned so far. Calm, listening, patience, and wondered what tonight's lesson would be. In that moment, he heard the slow footsteps of the master approaching. The elder carried a small lantern and stopped beside him. "You're still awake, young one," he said in a serene voice. "Yes, master. I've been reflecting on all you've taught me. But tonight, I don't know what the lesson is." The master sat beside him, placing the lantern between them. The two lights, the lamp and the lantern, flickered together, casting dancing shadows on the wooden walls. "Look at the flames," the master said. "They are small, yet each lights its own space. Neither tries to shine more than the other. They do not compete, they do not compare. They simply fulfill their purpose, to give light." The disciple watched quietly. The two flames seemed to greet each other, vibrating in the same rhythm. "So the lesson tonight is humility?" the young man asked. The master smiled. "Yes, and also unity. Just as these two lights accompany each other without stealing each other's brightness, human beings must learn to share their light without extinguishing another's." The young man nodded slowly. The master's words wrapped around him with a warmth that came not from the flame, but from the heart. "When you light your inner flame," the elder continued, "do not do it to stand out, but to guide. And when another lights the way, be grateful for their glow, for together you banish the darkness." The disciple looked at the master with shining eyes. He understood that the day's lesson does not always come with the sun, but also with the stillness of the night. They sat in silence, watching the two flames dance. The wind came through the window, but it did not extinguish them. It only made them move, reminding them that even light needs air to exist. "Master," the young man whispered, "what lesson will tomorrow bring?" The elder gently extinguished the lantern and replied, "Tomorrow, the day itself will tell you. You simply wake with an open heart." The disciple closed his eyes, and for the first time he understood that true learning did not depend on the master or books or time, but on the present moment itself, always ready to teach. Dawn returned, soft and silent, like the breath of the sky. The temple filled again with golden light, and the song of the birds announced the beginning of a new day. The young disciple stepped into the garden, where dew still glistened on the bamboo leaves. The air was fresh, pure, and every sound, the water, the wind, the footsteps of the monks, seemed part of a single melody. He closed his eyes for a moment and smiled. There was no rush. There was nothing to understand. He was simply there, fully present, listening to life in its simplest form. The master approached without a sound, holding a cup of hot tea. He offered it to the young man and spoke with serenity. Every dawn is a new opportunity to learn, but also to forget what has been learned. For a mind that clings cannot see the new. The disciple took the cup, feeling the warmth in his hands. The steam rose slowly, fading into the air. "So, should I also forget the lessons I've learned before?" he asked. The elder nodded. "It is not about forgetting, but about not carrying them as burdens. Lessons are not stones you keep in a sack, but seeds you let grow within. If you carry them as weight, they cannot bloom. But if you release them into your heart, they quietly take root." The young man looked toward the horizon. The sun began to rise, bathing everything in its warm light. For the first time, he understood that every breath, every gesture, Every glance could hold a lesson. "Master," he said softly, "what is today's lesson?" The elder smiled, gazing at the sky. "Today's lesson is simple. Be grateful." The disciple bowed his head in reverence, realizing that gratitude is the root of all wisdom, the seed of all calm, the door to all peace. The master added in a low voice, "When you give thanks, the heart opens, and when the heart opens, life teaches without words." The young disciple drank his tea, feeling its warmth spread through his body, and in that moment he knew he needed nothing more. Everything he sought was already within him. A gentle wind stirred, moving the petals of the cherry tree. The master and the disciple watched in silence as they floated through the air, dancing until they vanished into the horizon. And so the lesson of the day ended, not with an ending, but with a quiet breath, a gentle smile, and the deep understanding that every dawn carries with it a new chance to awaken.